Hi, everyone. This is Chris Russell here. So next on the RecTech podcast, you're going to hear conversations from RecruitDC. RecruitDC is a networking community that hosts events with the goal of fostering best practices and new idea discussion to elevate the recruiting profession in the greater Washington, D.C. area. You can find more at recruitdc.org. In today's show, actually the first of two I recorded from the last week's conference, you'll hear Ninh Tran from Tran, just a quick 5-minute update from him. And then you'll hear the session recorded with Chad Norman from Catch Talent on Employer Brand is Your Brand. So stay tuned for that and hope you enjoy the audio. So I'm at RecruitDC, and who do I run into but none other than Ninh Tran from Tran, one of our sponsors here on RecTech. How's it going, Ninh?
Doing amazing. It's always good to see you, Chris.
Yeah, it's good to see you out and about. So give us a quick update on the product. I know new version 3 is out. What's been the response so far?
Well, response has been amazing. We have actually, initially when we launched the V3 about a month ago, we were thinking about, it's a huge change. The product has changed tremendously. The UI has changed. We added a ton of new features, gave away even more stuff for free. And we kind of worried that a lot of people that already love Tran and use it every single day.
You're worried about the user experience,
yes,
right?
Exactly. I mean, we're worried that people would drop off, essentially, because they're like, oh, what happened, right?
You changed my thing.
Yeah, you changed my thing. I used to love this, and now I hate it. So that's kind of what you always have with new product releases, especially if you're changing the workflow and the product is drastically different.
Yeah.
First day we ran into a couple things, like people wanted export back, so we didn't release all of the features that we had in the past, just because there's so many things that we worked on, right, that have been added, like the reinforced learning model that's recently been there, so you can actually teach the sourcing AI like what kind of people you like and what kind of people you don't like. Mm-hmm. So it actually shows you more people like that or less people like that.
Yeah.
Right, finds a pattern between them. And that's small changes like that, they really help you. But also we didn't build out like the export feature, for example, and that's something that people have been asking for. So
to export the stuff they find on.
Yeah. So long story short, it took us about 2 weeks to build it back in, right? And I was telling everyone, hey, please be patient with us. But once the export was back, right, that was the only complaint that we had. Everyone said that the UI looks amazing. The AI is so much faster. It gives me candidates right on spot, more accurately. It used to take like 30 minutes to get through 300 results. Yeah. Now it takes a couple seconds. So,
how does the AI portion work? Is part of that? Will it automatically find candidates for you?
So the way it works is, yes, it will automatically find candidates for you. Just build kind of like a skill profile of the person that you want. Mm-hmm. Don't need to worry about Boolean. You just pick off the skill set that you need, put in location, other filters, target companies, and then it'll give you like 5 example of candidates that it thinks are what you're looking for. Okay. And then you'll say, hey, I want this guy, I don't want this, I want this, and I don't want this. And then you hit start, you'll get 50 people in a couple seconds to review. If you want more people, you keep hitting source more, you can put in 300. You can do that 10 times, nice. 20 times. There's no arbitrary limit, right? So a lot of platforms, they say they have millions and millions of results, right? But you always limit it to the 50th or the 1,000 result.
Right.
We don't have that.
Gotcha.
And with the AI, the fact that you can tell us which one you like and which one you don't like, when you go into volume in sourcing, right, it's always quality versus quantity, right? And the fact that you can teach us which people you like, you're gonna have quality over volume with scale.
Yeah, nice. So, seem to have quite a lot of clients here today. What are they talking to you about when they come up to you today?
Well, we got Justin, CSRA, just recently got acquired by General Dynamics. He he posted, and it's just been introducing me to everyone. I'm not supposed to sell at RecruitDC because we're not sponsors this time. We'll probably become sponsors because I'm loving the conference so far.
Yeah, it's a great conference.
Yeah, he said, they've had 12 security hires in just 2.5 weeks when they got Hartrell.
Nice.
And other people said, hey, I have similar, experience with that.
2 weeks, 12 hires, 1 software.
12 hires, 12 security hires. So I'm just happy that, we built something that works and people like to use. And ultimately, when I did recruiting, right, it was about helping other people improve their life, about getting a new job, and then that job opening up for other people that needed it, and now I get to help those guys, right, make their life easier.
You help the people who help people get jobs.
Yes.
Nice. Well, looking forward to the happy hour later. You buying me a drink?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Come on over. I'm a very blessed guy because I feel like there's so many people out there that have been helping us. So thank you.
Awesome. Good to see you. Good to see you again, man.
Yeah, good to see you.
Want to start early?
Sure.
Yeah. Like 2 minutes or all right. Well, we got already a full house, so I can't expect more people to come in here. So, hi everybody. I'm Matt Duran. I'm here to introduce you to Mr. Chad Norman. He is with Catch Talent, Chief Operating Officer, overseeing a lot of internal functions with finance, HR, marketing, communications, and a lot of the branding stuff for a lot of their clients. Great marketing and communication strategist. Has a long history of functional marketing, digital marketing, head of communications across companies. I think we're going to learn a lot of stuff today on how to employ those tactics in true marketing to what you guys do on a day-to-day basis and selling yourselves and selling your companies. So I'll turn it over to Chad.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Came all the way up here from Charleston, South Carolina. Do come up here quite frequently. We have a lot of clients up here, which has got to my first point about I don't actually own a winter coat. It is so hot down there all the time, 95 all the time. The only thing I know about being cold is that my daughter takes ice skating, right, which is on a rink. It's the only rink like in all the part of South Carolina we live in. So I was told that you would appreciate like this image here, which is not. Sorry. It's this image. Sorry, what a letdown now. Okay, yeah. So, I was born below the hockey line. I know nothing about hockey. I know a little bit about ice rinks now, but apparently this was a big deal last night based on what was happening at the hotel bar. So, but what's really cool about this image is that, the Caps they're not really in the hockey business, and they're not really in the sports business. They're actually in the entertainment business. And they get this, right? They get that what their product actually drives. And it's not about, pucks and ice and sports and punching, though that fight is pretty insane. It's about actually making people feel amazing, how they feel when they watch a hockey game, how they feel when they leave a game, when they talk about it, when they talk about it at work. That is like a feeling, and that's really what marketing and brand is all about. It's not about what something is, what a color is, what a logo is. It's about how it feels when you use a product. So I'm going to really talk to you today about how you can use those tactics in your employer branding. We all know about employer branding, but it's not really about the things, the career page or the referral campaigns. It's about how it actually feels to work somewhere. So we're going to talk about those kind of tactics and how that marketing approach can really drive not only great talent to your organization, but actually drive business. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We call that like marketing myopia, right? They're not in the hockey business, they're in the people business, the entertaining business. A great Harvard Business Review article from 30, 40 years ago, marketing myopia. It's about how in every city in America there was a light rail system, right? Going around, and then all of a sudden buses were invented. And within 2 years, all those companies went out of business. Same thing with the company that made red velvet ropes. They're from Iowa, and they've been around 150 years. They thought they were in the red velvet rope business. They were in the temporary dividing business. As soon as someone invented one of those things that contracted, out of business in a year. So that's the point, is as recruiters, we need to start thinking about how we're not in the recruiting business, we're not in the HR business, we're actually in business. And our CEOs and our clients, all of them are going to want to know that we can drive business, not just bring in talent. So we're going to get into that a little bit today. And just more. So I'm good. We're going to go over here. Sorry guys, I don't know what's going on with this. It keeps pulling up a security update. Yeah, I don't know, I'm a Mac guy. is now starting a security update. Well, you know, clearly I'm in marketing and recruiting and tech. Sorry, guys. We'll get this going again. I don't know how often that's going to actually happen. Wonderful room monitor, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Now there's like a screen that keeps popping up. Troubleshooting. No, that it's just something just taking a picture.
We're back. People up here?
Yeah. Bear with us. Sorry about this, guys. I'll talk really fast, so we'll get through everything. Well, no, just so watch it after a minute. It'll throw up a security update. All right, cool. So watch that. All right, so sorry, we're back. Hey, so we're going to talk about the marketing funnel, right? So again, how many people? Just clear. Who's here with an agency and who's internal? Like agency folks, raise your hand. All right, internal. Okay, that's great. So this is really focused on so you probably have a marketing team, right? So we're going to talk really about how you can actually engage with them and actually get the keys back to social media and really drive business through your organization. So this is what the new marketing funnel looks like, right? So back in the day, you would create awareness, consideration for your product, and eventually make a conversion, make a sale, right? Move something, make some money. But back in the day, that's when things stopped. Nobody really cared. But now it's different because of social media and things like that. You've got to build loyalty and brand advocacy, and then eventually that actually turns into more awareness and more leads and more sales. Customers are every company's best marketer now. So this kind of marketing funnel is what I want to talk about today in looking at how we can apply that to recruiting. So 86% of recruiters feel like they should be acting more like marketers. And that's totally true because we are absolutely out there with our brands, talking to people in the community, and trying to sell people on the workplace experience. So this is kind of how we look at things from a new recruiting funnel, right? It's not just getting them in the door, so sourcing, interviewing, and then eventually hiring, which is the conversion. But after that, it's about onboarding and creating promotions and having people engage with social media, getting out in the community, and actually driving referrals to create more candidates coming back in the door. So this creates a really cool cycle that enables our jobs to be a lot easier. So I kind of call this the talent attraction life cycle. So it's not actually like a funnel anymore. It's actually a continuous loop. And if you do this right, at the end of the day, you'll actually all your people will start actually attracting more jobs, and you can kind of just chill and stay. We'll never build a job. But you'll be able to actually use your team members to actually drive more recruiting, making your job a lot easier. So I'm going to now talk about the second time I'm going to mention Harvard Business Review. Not to be snooty, this is the only 2 Harvard Business Review articles I've ever read. This one is epic. Did anybody see this 3 years ago? This was an entire issue dedicated to blowing up HR, which I think this is what RecruitDC is all about. And it's about I'm involved with Disrupt HR, same kind of thing. Am I allowed to say that? Sorry. Harvard. This was a great thing. The key article here was about how companies are actually starting to drive business by using only 3 senior level people: the CEO, the CFO, and the CHRO. They're calling it a triumvirate or the G3. Everything in a business that's not with those 3 people is actually just operations, right? Whether it's marketing, it just does that every once in a while. I think it's the cable. Those 3 people actually, it's do you have the vision, the CEO? Do you have the money to do it? And then do you have the people to make that vision happen? And so that's a really powerful message, and that's what I want you guys to take away from this. I've seen too many organizations where people are stuck in the HR department. They're stuck not thinking that they're actually driving business. And that's what every CEO at the end of the day wants to do. Again, marketing myopia. We're not in the recruiting or HR business. We're in the business of business. So if you can actually, whether you're working as an agency trying to sell value, or you're actually internal and trying to show that you can actually provide value outside of just talent, that's where this can come into play. So it's worth checking out because that is an actual, like, this G3 movement, the way it's going to be, that's the way we all get elevated to that level and actually make an impact on the business. So the old saying that everyone is in sales is complete BS, right? I'm not sure if I'm allowed to swear at this event. But we are all in marketing, and that's how I want you to start thinking about your recruiting. Whether it's how you write a job description, how you post on LinkedIn, any of those kind of things needs to be with a marketer's mindset. And there's a great quote here from David Packard, the HP founder. Marketing is too important to be left to the marketing team. And that's totally true. Again, I came from the world of marketing. We're always the dumbest people in the room. And that's just a fair statement to say. No offense if you guys are marketers and super smart. But we're very passionate about what we do. Clearly, we'll get in front of anybody and do anything. We'll talk about anything. We're really good with messaging and things like that. However, we're not necessarily the closest people to the business. And I feel like in HR, we are. The entire business is people. How many here work in like a services business, like a lot of government contracting kind of thing? That's the world I came from. So we had a software company that we grew to 400 people and sold to Booz Allen just in a couple of years. And our job, when we launched Catch Talent, my partner and I, she ran HR, I ran marketing. Our job literally became just to hire great people and show them off to attract more. We weren't doing typical lead gen. We weren't, doing all that sort of stuff. Our job was literally to show off our people. And so we kind of came up with the idea that that's really how we should be working. We shouldn't be fighting over the same donut with marketing, right? It should be a partnership. I was talking to an individual before the show here about how they didn't have access to their marketing team, their social media feed. And that's a shame, right? I asked her what did they post? They're like, yeah, news, things like that. I'm like, okay, that's a snooze fest. We actually need to be talking about our people on social media, showing them off, let them convey the news. Don't just link out the posts and things like that. So this is a relationship that needs to really be well managed and put together. And I think when you do that, especially when you're trying to attract talent, it can really add a lot of value. And that kind of leads to employer branding, right? This is obviously something that's on everybody's mind. That's why you're all in this session. Employer branding is a real interesting concept these days, especially when we're talking about this war for talent, especially in tech, where if you guys recruit developers, it's intense, right? They can work anywhere they want. The whole be a developer thing, it's great, but they really go to work for the best places to work, period. That's how a lot of them make their choices. And so we got to make sure our employer brands are really, really strong. And at the end of the day, employer branding or brand itself in marketing, it's not about colors, it's not about a logo, it's not about messages or writing or anything like that. It's about how you feel when you use a product, right? So it's how many of you have felt like this when you get your new iPhone out of it, right? Apple knows this, right? That's why the packaging is that way. It's an experience. It's even just unboxing it is like an experience. And let alone how it feels to use the product, right? So that's how we have to look at how it is at a company, right? You've got to love your job, right? That is the message we're trying to convey, trying to capture. It's not the benefits, the perks, all that kind of stuff. It's about what it's like to walk in that door every single day and do something amazing with even more amazing people. That's the only thing that people are going to really want at the end of the day, and that's what they're going to talk about with their friends, which we'll get more into later. So 75% of us professionals are passive candidates. You all know this. This is that's a boring stat. But I do like this one. 78% of candidates decide to apply for a job before they even speak with us. Okay, that's pretty powerful. That's 4 out of 5 people have already made the decision. And what do you guys think they're making that decision based on? Careers page, Glassdoor, yeah, that's a good one, right? So Glassdoor, careers pages, even your job postings, like that kind of stuff. They somehow are using that information, your social media channels, to actually make the call before they even talk to you on your call. And that's why these organizations have dedicated entire departments to employer branding. Does anybody here work for a big organization that's actually got an employer branding function or department? It's pretty, really, that's intense. So it's pretty rare, but you're seeing it in large organizations that can afford to have these things. They're putting a lot of emphasis on these. And part of it is because of what's happening on Glassdoor. But it's also because the talent pool, with unemployment being so low, it's really hard to get people in the door. So what are some of those ways that you can actually see employer branding across the board? So obviously careers websites, referral campaigns, which we'll get into more. Those are some of my favorite ones. But things like industry conferences and quality tables and social media channels are great. But the bottom one is the really important one. It's their friends and family, and that goes back to that talent attraction life cycle, that marketing funnel. What you really want to do is get people talking about what it's like to work at your organization. That's going to move the needle more than anything. That's going to get you referrals, which are the best candidates. Hey, I know you hired me and I'm good, but I've got 5 more friends that are exactly like me. I'm not going to spend too much time on these slides because you can probably look at some of this stuff, but this kind of stuff's important about EVP, and which is kind of an older way to look at employer brand. But the exercise is good because I want to point out there's all these different benefits for working at an organization. And these are the things that we use as a crutch when we talk to people. Yeah, we've got great benefits and a great 401k. Our building is gorgeous. We have a slide and beer on tap and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. But what does that mean? Those are just artifacts. That's just benefits. That's not actual value. So trying to figure out what all that means to value to when people come in the door. So an example, say you got great benefits. It's all taken care of. Like everything's taken care of. Co-pays, premiums. It's just top-notch health care. That is not what you should be talking about. You should be talking about we have those things, and we also have a wellness program. We have really healthy food on site. But all that really means, the value, is that we care. We actually care about our employees. They're an altruistic company, and that's kind of the process you can use for figuring out what your actual value is. Right? It's simple. Just conduct focus groups, surveys, things like that. Determine which of the 3 or 4 most important benefits, and then actually leverage that for your EVP and attraction. So, but you got to find that value, right? You can't just actually be oh, I've got this list of awesome things that we have at the company. You got to assign value to those things. And one of my favorites is when your company's doing something really amazing, you have really cool projects, you have really great clients. Those are the things. But what that really is an inclusion value. You get to be a part of something special when you come work for us. And that's the value that underlines the benefit. And so that's, I think, the missing piece when people talk about employer branding and how that can cascade out into your materials. So just keep that in mind as we kind of go through some of these examples. So I want to walk through a few of the talent attraction lifecycle points and one by one kind of go through how you can touch on some of that stuff in each one of these touch points. So the first is obviously recruiting. So the key there is to really recruit great talent. So we do that through actively sourcing on passive candidates and things like that. But like I said, that decision is going to be made oftentimes before they even get on the phone with you. So really focusing on your careers page. Cara did a great job talking about some of the key elements there, some of the more advanced things people are doing now. But it's pretty simple. I mean, if your careers page is just your job openings, that's the last thing you want on there, and that should be the last thing they see when they go there. If you go to some companies that are really into this, it's actually sometimes, I wouldn't say it's hard to find their open positions, but sometimes it's just a button or it's at the bottom of the page because they want you to get through the experience of what it's like to work there first. So, these are just some examples of things you can have there. But more importantly, that call to action, to join the team, view our open position, that's where all this stuff should lead, right? And there's great examples. These are some like the Spotify, Hootsuite. This is Square. These pages are full of employee experiences. And one of the things I would like to point out, if you look at these side by side, is I don't see job openings anywhere on these pages, which is interesting, right? It's people talking about their jobs. It's people talking about what it's like to work at places. But there's not just a big list of all the job openings. So this is going back to that marketing piece. So we need to be working with our marketing teams to really drive this content. It's easy to be like, hey, here's my workable widget. Can you please put it on my careers page? No. Okay, stop there. If you're doing that, that's not really engaging your marketing team. They're there to serve you. Remember the triumvirate? Like you're HR. They're operations. They're there to support. So we need to push hard to really get this kind of content created and out there. And just another example of a really great Charleston company that was just acquired by Snagajob a few years back. Their career pages, they were like, we're just going to do it all. We're NASCAR effect, right? So every single thing you can imagine is on here. But it's great. It's a one-stop shop for actually going and actually figuring out what it's like to work at an organization. So that's some great ways handle your careers page, and that's the first part of it. So that's the recruit piece of your employer brand, showing that value out there on top of when you're actually talking to people. So leading into interviewing, right? So interviewing candidates, that's where the rubber meets the road for all of us. So actually infusing employer branding in interviews is tricky because you're trying to get skills out. You're trying to actually figure out what someone can provide to your organization from that side. but you're also selling the candidate on the experience of working there. So I always like to talk about those key things. If you figured out your EVP and your 4 or 5 values that you have to work at, ask them about those. See, because you need to figure out if they have the skills to do the job, but if they're actually going to be a fit and be successful. This reminds me of the bounce pool. Like at our organization, we had a veto pool. So it was someone like if someone came in and they were in a final stage of an interview, and some other developer on another Scrum team was like, "Hey, I worked with that guy at this other company. No, get him out." They can be bounced, even if he was about to get an offer. So this is important because that's like a value check. That is a way to actually make sure that you can have alignment from everybody that walks in the door, and that just really makes magic happen. To be fair, that was only used twice in 5 years, but it was they're important both times. So make sure that you're focusing on that interview and keeping that kind of content at top of mind for every question along the way. The offer. So when you actually get to the point of making that offer, this is like the scariest time for all of us, right? This is like the most superstitious. So I came from marketing, right? I've been doing recruiting now for 3 or 4 years. And how many of you have superstitions when it comes to like actually when you move someone on the board or when you invoice a client? I had no idea. This is like those baseball guys, and they step out of the box, and they're doing this, and they're doing that. Everybody's kind of got this thing, right? And that blew my mind. I had no idea it was actually like that. And I think it comes back to like this. This is a really simple way to kind of look at what we do. This comes up all the time. I kind of stumbled upon this. Someone told a weird little simple joke. It's not even a funny joke, but I never forgot it because it's totally like what we do. And it's like a doctor walks in and he's getting his car fixed at a mechanic shop. And the mechanic he's coming over to talk to the doctor, and he's like rubbing his hands with his towel, and he's like, "Hey, the car's looking better." He's like, "Yeah, did you get it all fixed?" He's like, "Yeah, we're good to go." And he's like, "Hey, this is the mechanic talking. You and I, we kind of do the same thing." He's like, "Yeah, but try to do that without turning the engine off in the car." And so we're dealing with people that have lives. They don't necessarily want to leave their job a lot of times. We're trying to get them out. And this is like a really scary time for all of us as we try to make that connection and make them take that next step. So this is the time when you really you need to reiterate what that initial connection was, what that value was, why you wanted to bring them to the organization. So with every candidate, when we're at this stage, we make a list of the 3 or 4 core values of the organization that really they are aligned with. And we try to use those like every couple minutes during this conversation when we're actually extending the offer for the client or just for to the candidate. Talk to them about like why they're a fit, not why they're going to be successful, but why they need to actually be there. And that value is what's going to make them actually go back to their family and be like, "Hey, I can't believe that I'm going to be able to work at this place. Here's why." And everyone's going to be like, "Yes, just do it. You got to do it." And that's really where you can actually use that value to influence the people around your candidates to actually help make that decision. And I think that's a powerful message for all of us. And so and that happens like very very frequently. People bail and bounce, and that's because they didn't understand the value, and a friend or a colleague or a family member talked them out of it. So make sure you infuse that EVP message and employer branding message with that part of the process. So onboarding your talent. So this one's really, really interesting. How many of you have a really strong onboarding process and own it from your right? So a few of you. So that's actually a key thing because there's some interesting stuff that happens when you bring someone on board. So we've seen some cool stuff where people when you show up at the airport, you've got a sign and someone's waiting for you with a suit on. There's a great tech company in Charleston that does that. When you walk in your first day, there's someone in the lobby waiting for you, they're welcoming you to this next part of your journey. There's another company that actually rolls out a red carpet, which is actually pretty cool. So it sounds cheesy. These are little tiny things that make a difference on someone's first day, especially if you've got a big group of people coming in. So another thing that we've seen work really well is a buddy system. So I know that sounds dumb, but it's a very simple concept. Does anybody do something like this? Do you pair somebody with an employee when they start an organization? All right, so one of the keys to this, the way it really works, is pair someone that has nothing to do with what they do in the organization. The only alignment is level. So if you're hiring an executive, you pair them with another executive. If you're hiring an accountant, you pair them with a marketing coordinator. This gets them outside their team. This gets them exposure to the rest of the organization, and it gives them someone that they can trust, that they don't have to sit with every day, that they don't have to report to, or have report to them, or anything like that. This has been wildly successful for a lot of reasons, because it does reiterate that value and it brings somebody into the fold right away. And they're going to have an immediate contact, especially if they move somewhere for a job. It's an instant friend. someone they connect with on social media, and do that sort of stuff with. So that's a simple idea. I think you guys can implement very easily. The other piece is like, this isn't talked about enough. There are a lot of life events where every single person in your life will ask you about. All right. So when you move to a new city, when you buy a home, get married, have a kid, everybody asks you the same question. You know, how's the new house? How's Charleston? How's married life, right? And one by one, every relative, neighbor, friend, coworker, every one of them will ask you that question. And we are in charge of one of those questions, which is, how's the new job going, right? And this is the biggest takeaway I want you guys to have. I want you to prepare yourself or your candidates to answer that question. And I don't mean from a perspective of, hey, it's a great place to work, we have all these awesome stuff. But actually, this is what the company does, and this is how you're going to drive business and impress the marketing team and the CEO. When we started Catch, this is our first day. We literally sat there because we had secretly been launching this company. We were part of our exit of our other company, and we had to like announce it to the world. And we spent 2 days literally just hammering away at people, telling what we were doing, answering all the questions we just talked about. When we celebrated a year later, we had 6 people, and yes, we did wear the exact same thing for the same photo because we're total nerds. So we did this a year later. It's not Photoshop. And so we realized along the way we wanted them to share this, and we had coached each one of them not only like what it was like to work at Catch. We're a startup, and we're not really that evolved to have all this kind of like great company benefits. But we did make sure that they knew our elevator pitch, they knew what differentiated us from our competitors, and that they knew how to actually take action and bring in a referral or a lead. And that's what I'm talking about. I want you to arm every single person that starts at your company with the message that they can drive business. Give them your elevator pitch, give them the differentiator, give them the path to how do you even get a lead into your sales team. That is going to actually start moving the needle, especially when your sales team's like, where are we getting all these leads? If we're getting it from all the new employees because HR is kicking ass and like making everybody know the elevator pitch. Does anybody do that? Actually make your new employees learn all this stuff? We actually, our old company actually coached them on it. We did a 30, 60, and 90-day check-in, and this is covered in it. We were actually, hey, get up, do the elevator pitch, let's hear it. And this was really key. This really, created a story, created something that, the team, knew how to get out in the market and discuss. So that's what I want you to think about. Like, what is their story going to be? Like, what's that story that they're going to tell? It should be about, that it's a great place to work, that you've got this awesome stuff, but it really should be about what you're doing as an organization, what you're building, what you're selling, how you're changing the world. That's going to really be, at the end of the day, what drives that business. And again, that's what we're trying to talk about. Your employer branding is your brand, and your people are actually going to be your best recruiters and salespeople. So hopefully that makes sense. So promoting, this one's a really big one too. So this kind of goes back to actually sharing your story publicly. So this is more like not new employees. They're going to talk about it on social media and when they're out networking. But this is going to be the one that long term, how you get into that social media feed, not just from a open job perspective, but how you actually talk about what it's like to work somewhere. So 66% of candidates actually believe that interactions with employers are the best way to gain insight. Glassdoor knows this painfully well, and oh my God, their sales team is so aggressive. But I'm sure you all get 1,000 emails like me every day from them. However, this is the way consumer behavior works as well. I mean, do any of you buy anything on Amazon or watch anything on Netflix maybe without looking at the reviews? I mean, that's the first place we all go. Or we actually ask a friend, hey, I need a recommendation on this product X. It's hard to actually make a buying decision, especially an important one, without checking a review or getting a reference. So this is what we've got to be, how we got to focus on with our employees. Actually enlisting that social media army. Doing this even on a weekly basis, actually sending out graphics, pre-made graphics. Again, get in with that marketing team if you can't do it yourself. For job openings, like write snippets that they can just post on social media. Make it easy. If any of you work in tech and work with developers, like sometimes the stereotype, and it's true, is they aren't necessarily like really chatty on social media, but they're not necessarily verbally creative. So we just provided everything for them. We're like, hey, here's what you can post on LinkedIn. Here's an image that's formatted to fit it. Here's something you can tweet about. Here's something you can post on Instagram. All this stuff just kind of makes it really easy to enlist that social media army and actually drive people towards what you're trying to do, which is bring people in the door. And what's cool about that is it's actually going to help with your marketing as an organization. You're going to have people out there in everybody's feeds talking about all this stuff. Your brandably out there, not just your employer brand, but your actual brand. And that actually can drive more than what your marketing team is trying to do, which is actually doing digital advertising, doing inbound marketing, things like that. That's hard sometimes to see, but like everybody in the community, everybody in these big, vast networks is going to see this kind of activity, and not only know it's a good place to work, but that you guys are a really active, engaged company trying to do really amazing things. So I encourage you to actually try some of those tactics, actually get these graphics created for open jobs, for when you're trying to doing big hiring happy hours, whatever you're doing to actually drive inbound candidates and put that out there. So referring. Referring actually is a big thing. How many of you have an actual referral program in place where people get paid if people start becoming? So a lot of us, right? How many of you actually do campaigns throughout the year to re-engage with that? So a little bit less. So that's one thing that people just forget about. They're like, oh yeah, I made this great referral program. Anybody can give if a developer gets hired, you can get $1,000, whatever it is. But the key there is to actually engage people and actually throughout the year and actually to refer that network, to actually remind them that there is this program, provide a boxed incentive, a contest, whatever it may be, and actually go from well, I get 5 referrals a month to I got 500 this month because I did a campaign. So we've seen all these kind of things manifest in love where you work in February, like the Valentine's Day thing. Open some stuff up in your lobby when people are walking in. Make it a big deal. Send emails out every day. Make sure everybody knows that in the next 30 days, you're going to get X for however many leads you send in, and obviously the referral program is still in place too for if you hire anybody. These kind of things are wildly successful, and actually, again, do a couple things. Really increase your pipeline and bring in a bunch more candidates, but also gets you the right kind of candidates. Right, you're getting all the people in your network that your employees already know. And those kind of, as you know, are some of the best, candidates you can possibly have. So there's some simple ways to do this, actually having that campaign theme and rules. Do a kickoff email at events. Do that social media and email samples, like I talked about. Actually just draft the emails, get images pre-made, have it all ready to go, throw it in a Google Drive or whatever kind of server you have. Let them have at it. Get with your marketing team. Make sure this is also going on in concert with the public on your social media channels. Have a landing page that's dedicated for all this, whether it's public or internal, that goes to. It's a special themed application page, that's different than your typical job board. And then, more importantly, track and communicate the results, because anybody, it's going to cost. This one does cost a little bit of money sometimes. It can be free, but you're going to want to know how we actually move the needle and how we actually increase our candidate pipeline over a typical month where we're not doing this. And that kind of stuff's great because you're really, we did one where anybody follow Humans in New York? So we did on Facebook. It's a great photo campaign. So we did the humans of our company, and so we did that for we did 2 60-day periods a year apart, and we just took photos, same kind of photos in that campaign, which are just awesome shots, full-length photos of people in their natural environment. So it was kind of fun doing that with developers and things like that. But it resonated like crazy, and it just became our biggest marketing campaign for our company, throughout the year. And there's a lot of companies that do this really well. You know some of these, right? UPS does a great job about this. They feature all of their athletes around the Olympics, and actually, everybody loves their UPS driver, right? It's one of the few people you actually get to know. And you associate, their brand with their employees, and that's kind of what we're talking about. That employer brand, what these employees are like, is actually their brand. Pizza Hut's a similar kind of thing. Most of us don't go to Pizza Hut or to any pizza place, but that delivery driver comes to our house all the time. And that's actually our touch point with the company. The employee is the brand in that case. And Zappos is another great example, where their exquisite customer service is what put them on the map. And one of my favorite things about Zappos is that no matter where you start in the organization, you have to be on the phones for a month to learn their core business, which is service. So we kind of are doing that at our agency too. No matter what you do, you have to learn to recruit first. But their people became their brand, right? Shoes, you can buy shoes anywhere. But I buy them from Zappos because of the awesome people that I talk to when I have to make a return or when I have a problem or something like that. It just really became the key. And I think, the granddaddy of all this is Google. We did everybody. I mean, look at this stuff. I don't even know what half this stuff is. This is all just pictures of their offices. This is what you think about from Googlers, right? You use their products, because they work, because they're made by these people. These people are happy. They're awesome. They're engaged. They're some of the best and brightest minds in our country, and they all work for Google for their employer brand. But we use Google products because of them. Because we know that, in one day out of every week, they're building something that nobody knows we need yet. And that's really exciting. That's a really cool part about, organizations that we can capture, what this is to work at a company. And this is a great one. Walt Disney really, I think, had this down cold, where, you bring your friends, right? Do what you do so well that they will want to see it again and bring their friends. And that's what we're trying to do, right? We want to do what we do so well, show off our employer brand, that everybody will want to bring their friends to come work here. And whether that we're talking about a referral campaign, or we're talking about a hiring happy hour, or just social media touch points, make it really awesome. Because again, like today, we're not really actually in recruiting, we're actually in marketing. We're the product, you build something, that's what sells. And that's really what makes it so people want to work at an organization. They really feel something special about coming there. And that's what keeps them there. That's what keeps their friends coming back. And that's sort of what makes the talent attraction life cycle completely work. As you go from bringing people on board to making that offer and interview, onboarding them, promoting them, and then referring them. And I know it's scary to say that, but if you do this right, like literally our jobs become way easier. We can go out, we can work on the tough positions, we can work on hard to fill senior stuff, but like our bread and butter, this kind of stuff just creates this really great churn. It just keeps bringing people in the door. And honestly, at the end of the day, it's going to make it so that you can actually drive business. Because they're going to be talking about what you're doing as a company. They're going to be out there in the community engaging. They're going to be writing blog posts. They're going to be networking, and they're not just going to be talking about your organization. They're going to be talking about what you do and how you're changing the world. So that's kind of the theory behind talent attraction lifecycle. I don't have too much more content. I kind of went through that fast, sorry, because I was trying to make up for the time with the technical difficulty there at the beginning. But I'm more than happy to take some questions, or if you got those, or answers would be great too, because hey, we're all here to help each other. Like that gentleman here in the front.
So we're in the government space. I don't know, maybe some other folks are in the government space, and so we're not Google.
Yeah.
And it's not like Google when you go to the places that we have people.
For sure.
It's like, where people work. It's queues and
yeah.
So what other distinctions could I draw to my organization, to these folks' organizations, when it's it's office work?
Yeah.
And they're all working. Most of our folks work for the government on government contracts and doing that kind of stuff.
Right. So I think it's about, it's a good question. I mean, I think it's about actually finding that common bond and that value that is keeping people there. Obviously, you've got a successful organization that people are staying at and are happy to be employed at. When we launched Spark, that was one that we were like, well, we're gonna totally change it and do it different. We have everybody from life cycle to agility to booze. They were all in our building permanently, but our 300 employees were there too. And it was great because they adapted to us, and eventually that's what attracted Booz to come and purchase the company. They were trying to figure out a different way to work. So why, as far as things you can do, I mean, it's hard to change. It's hard to make that sea change and actually make it a different environment. But that's part of what how you can move that needle. But not if people don't want to, right? I mean, I think a key is to talk to people and ask them hey, if you could change some things, what would it be? What is it like when you walk in the door every day? What are you feeling when you sit and talk to folks? And if you see common themes, you can actually draw those out and change it. It is tough if you feel like that you're kind of boxed in, literally, in cubes and things like that. But there's something there keeping you all together. And it's just about identifying what that is and actually then magnifying it, accelerating it, and then just keeping it going. If that makes sense. I mean, tactic-wise, it's tough. You're going to have to start with, I think, that first part, which is actually just doing the research, doing the homework, understanding what you have actually in front of you, and then extrapolating from there. Oh.
Another question. One, do you have a DIY plan for it? And then also, how long do you think that it takes to effectively implement a program like this?
Right. So yeah, the do-it-yourself plan is simple, right? I think it's really getting involved with that marketing team. And for a couple reasons. I've talked to a few of you before the session, and this comes up a lot when we're talking about employer branding. Like, I'm in HR, I don't have a budget. You know who has a budget? Marketing has a budget. They are all spent. They are literally complete overhead, and they have the money. So that's the key. I think the do-it-yourself part is like finding how to make that connection and get on that team and get part of those projects. They need to know that you are a customer of theirs, and that they need to support you just like they do the sales team and the support team and everything else. So that's kind of where to start, is actually getting that project going and getting that connection going. And then actually getting to the point where you can actually implement things. It shouldn't take more than 3 to 6 months to kick off a lot of this stuff. Whether you're talking about the employee, the referral programs, things like that, getting a careers page update, things like that, and actually planning a few events and things like that. There's really inexpensive ways you can do. We've seen a lot of success with things like hiring happy hours. I know this can get a little dicey sometimes in the gov space. But actually bringing people into your organization, and it's fascinating too because there's a lot of people that are obviously still employed, and it's weird throwing them all together because you see kind of people like, whoa, that's somebody from the office over there. But what you're doing a couple things. All you need to do that is like some posts on social media that are free, and some alcohol and some snacks. It doesn't have to be crazy. I'm not talking about catering like this. I mean, just, cooler full of beer, whatever, and some bags of chips. It doesn't matter. Nobody's there. And what you do is like you have somewhere where they can go learn about the company. You give them access to hiring managers, and you're just collecting a bunch of resumes and getting people in the door. And that's a big first step. And what that does too is it casts off a lot of people that aren't willing to take that first step, and they're actually going to come to you and actually be on board. So those kind of things can be done relatively quickly and inexpensively. It can really, I think within a year, you can probably see some serious results, but you should be able to actually get things happening fairly quickly, especially if you get that marketing team buy-in. Or if you have executive level sponsorship as well, as far as like, hey, this needs to be important. Like I said, I always tell people, like, get that Harvard Business Review article and read it and leave it on your CEO's desk. Because that is an important seed change. And I think any CEO I've ever talked to is like, yeah, I get it. I do just need the money to do stuff and the people to implement that. Those are the 3 people. Everything else again is operation. So try to just influence with things like that and try to get the ball rolling.
Hi, this is not a question, but an information sharing of what we are doing. So you talked about that social distribution and having employees post on your behalf. So we use iSIMS, and they have a very cool feature of social distribution where employees can just do one-time sign up and they share their jobs automatically on LinkedIn. We found it really good in terms of promoting our brand and company name out there because we are a local non-federal company and not very well known on the tech side. Another good thing that we're doing, which we talked about, elevator pitches, we have softwares, and all our employees during the new hire training have to do a learn and do a demo of our software so that they get an idea of what it is like to use our product and what we are actually selling to our customers. And everybody gets pretty excited about doing that. So I thought I'd share that.
No, that's a great example. I mean, yeah, getting people to actually demo and use your software. That's kind of what I was talking about in that onboarding process, whether it's that or an elevator pitch or again, your sales team probably loves that. Yeah, please talk about our software a lot. As far as like automated postings and stuff like that, there's a lot of value in that because you can hit scale pretty quickly, making it easy for people. But sometimes that can backfire a little bit because it looks automated, especially if you have a lot of people doing it. Like if a lot of people are connected all on the same networks with LinkedIn, and you see the same 5 messages go by from 5 different people, that can be a little bit of a ding. It can be a little bit of like, well, obviously they're trying something here. So I do always encourage, like, hey, we encourage you to do custom messaging, like use your own words, use your own language. You can use this image and stuff. You can provide some sample copy and obviously the link and things like that. But I think it's always good to encourage people to actually, use their own words, use their own language, especially depending on the channels too, because the way you talk on Instagram is very different than the way you talk on LinkedIn and things like that. So every channel kind of has its own voice. So, but yeah, those are good examples.
Hi, I actually loved a lot of the things you talked about in our new employee orientation. We actually bring the marketing team in to talk about what it's like to be a brand ambassador for us. Right. One of the questions I actually had though, you talked about some of the best examples of career pages that you'd seen almost hide where the jobs are. Yeah. And that runs completely counterintuitive to everything I've ever heard, right? So could you talk maybe a little bit about that?
Yeah, again, because it's a good question, because you're leading with brand, right? And I'm just seeing this more and more in the last couple of years. I think this is kind of a new thing that's happening. And a lot of times it's hidden, I think, behind a button, like CR openings, things like that. It's traditional. I think it's, again, marketing principles being applied to a careers page. Typically a careers page is like an afterthought. It's like, well, we built a new website and we got it on WordPress or whatever, and I need to throw my workable widget up there, whatever HR system you're using for a job board, and then we'll call it a day. We'll put our company description, here's our listing, great. So that, I think, was sort of like, an easy way to appease the HR team if you're marketing, because you're marketing, right? You're worrying about literally 500 other pages. So I think what we're seeing is an evolution of that. We're seeing this closeness of HR and marketing coming together and actually being able to apply the marketing principles to a careers page. So that principle being, like, when you go to a marketing page, a landing page for a campaign, the form to fill out to get more information is not the first thing you see. The first thing you see is high-level messaging. Then you see some details, some bullets, some messaging about the value that product provides, and then a call to action. That's kind of the principle we're seeing on career pages, right? It's, hey, this is what it's like to work here. Here's the work you're going to be doing. Here's some of your future coworkers. And by the way, are you interested? Because here's where you go to see the jobs. So I think that's what it is. It's actually the application of marketing best practices to the career page. So the whole, modeling that funnel after the marketing experience. Does that make sense? I know it is totally counterintuitive, but look around. You'll start seeing on bigger, especially with bigger brands, that those job openings aren't the first thing on the careers page. They still may have a call to action that's high up on the page as far as like to get there, but it's not going to just be that list, which is like not doing anybody any favors as far as telling what a great workplace you have. If it's just a list of open jobs, especially if you've got like 180. That's just daunting. So, yeah, good question though.
I got one actually. A lot of people in this area, maybe a department of one from recruiting, and then be the recruiter, the brander, all that stuff. And then to Lauren's point earlier, government space, very sensitive, can't share everything, or there's layers of approval to have to go through things. Can you talk about maybe how to, as maybe a small team, make those approval processes a little less painful?
Yeah, I mean, approval process is always tough. Any kind of process is always tough. So again, I think, instead of talking about the things you're going to do, talk about obviously the results you're going to achieve. Like I said, I wanted to inspire all of you to not just think like marketers, but to think that you're driving business. So when you're talking about somebody that needs to approve something, it's really easy to approve something that can show me that it's going to make a lot of money. Because at the end of the day, that's what we're all doing all of this for, is we're trying to like make money. I know we're trying to change people's lives with products and all this kind of stuff, and well, really, it's called business. We're trying to like actually make money. So I think actually showing that value, showing the results as the key part of the messaging and getting that approval is sometimes overlooked. A lot of times the approval is like, well, here's what I want to do, and here's what it's going to cost. Don't stop there. You got to really focus on the results. And if you, if the approval part, if the budget part's the tough part, then get scrappy and figure out how to do it, inexpensively. A lot of this stuff doesn't cost anything. It's really just about messaging and diligence and discipline and repetition, like a lot of things are. And eventually that actually makes the change. So that's kind of, but it is tough to get started if you're a team of one. But you can start small. You can implement, like someone asked about how long it takes, and you can do one of these things every other month. And by the time a year goes by, you're going to have a very robust system in place and a lot of things happening that didn't require you to stop everything to do. Because obviously, you implement this stuff, you got to keep doing your day job. So that can help as well.
You also mentioned just kind of planning out a calendar of things, right? I mean, what are some big things that you think that everybody should have in that calendar of posts or concepts or campaigns?
Right. So you're referencing like the editorial calendar. So anybody that's got a mature marketing team, when you're talking about social media or blogs or anything, they have an editorial calendar that they follow. Like, hey, on these days we post this kind of stuff. On these days we post, and they're doing their marketing stuff. This is when we post our news. This is when we do content marketing. This is when we post the webinar, whatever it may be. You guys, as HR, we got to get our recruiting and our messaging into that stream. So that's what we're talking like. And I think a good cadence for like, obviously you don't want to overload it with just, hey, this is job posting. But you can do, I think, 3 to 5 a week, especially on channels like Twitter. Facebook, maybe twice a week. But try to get you need to get a spot in that calendar. So I think it's things like job postings. I think it's employee, featuring employees, like kind of what I talked about with it was called Humans to Spark. And it was like just a simple photo of somebody and a quote. It wasn't even any call to action. It was just like, hey, we're showing off a cool developer, and this is something cool they said. So things like that. We did a women in tech thing where we showed, we had them all, we photographed all their shoes on their laptops and things like that. So just different kind of content. If you get creative, your marketing team will respond. They'll be like, hey, this is great. This is way better than talking about that press release for the 19th time, which nobody cares about, by the way. So getting those kind of things in there. And again, the main stuff's easy, like talking about like showing pictures from where you work, showing like the fun things you do as a team, like team outings and stuff like that. Marketing team will be already on some of that. But really make sure the job postings are up. And it's not just, hey, we're looking for a C# developer, with clearance. Make it different than that, right? Make that the detail kind of like lower out. Actually, try to get creative with it because they're going to respond to marketing, not just, hey, this is a job post, please put it in your feed. So trying to get some of those things in there at a cadence, and you can start small. Just be like, hey, I just want to please post a job for me like 2 or 3 times a week, and then kind of build up from there. Again, make sure that you're getting in the reporting structure as well. We'll be able to find out the results. Like, hey, marketing team, I know you're talking about this with all your stuff. I want to know how many clicks I got. I want to know how many people came to the site, so that you can actually show an improvement over time. Because again, anybody that's a stakeholder for you is going to respond to that. Any other questions? I realize this is between you and lunch, so I'm going to keep getting longer.
All right, cool. Oh, thanks. I appreciate the time.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Another episode of RecTech is in the books. Follow Chris on Twitter at Chris Russell or visit rectechmedia.com, where you can find the audio and links for this show on our blog. RecTech Media helps both HR tech firms and employers to get more clients or candidates through our consulting practice and online tools. So be sure to check out our sites like recruiting headlines, job fairing, and more to stay up to date on what's happening in recruiting. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon on the next episode of RecTech, the Recruiting Technology Podcast.